You know that feeling when your to-do list is like a mile long, but you're not even sure you actually got anything done. Yeah, we're going to dive into that feeling today. We're doing a deep dive on this video that's been making the rounds online. It calls out hustle culture for the productivity killer it really is. And trust me, this isn't just another one of those like surface level rants, right? We're going to go deeper than the memes and all that to uncover like the hows and whys behind this whole glorification of just being busy, you know? And this video, it really kicks off strong. It just comes right out and says hustle culture is a lie, and it could actually be holding us back from real success. So what do you think? Are they being too extreme, or are they like right on the money?
Well, it is pretty interesting, isn't it, how hustle went from like just a buzzword to this badge of honor almost overnight. But thankfully, now you see more and more people realizing it's basically a fast track to burnout. But before we even get into all the downsides, maybe we should define what we really mean by hustle culture.
Yeah, totally.
Like at its core, it's this whole idea that you constantly need to be on.
Yeah.
Always grinding, always chasing the next goal, even if it's at the cost of like your well-being, your relationships, even sleep. And this video, it doesn't mess around, you know? It calls out this mentality for exactly what it is, a recipe for disaster.
For sure. And isn't it kind of ironic, though? Like, the people who are out there yelling hustle harder the loudest, they're often the ones selling you some success course or some productivity tool. It makes you wonder, right? Like, are they really as successful as they claim to be? If they've got all this time to be coaching the rest of us. It reminds me of this study I read a while back. Researchers found that when people brag about being super busy, other people see them as more competent, more important, even if they're not actually getting more done. It's wild, like this weird social currency we've created around being busy.
Well, absolutely. That's a perfect example of how manipulative hustle culture can be. Think about those Instagram ads, right? You got the guru posing on a yacht somewhere, saying anyone can have this lifestyle if they just buy their course. It totally preys on our insecurities, our desire for achievement. And then it sells us this version of success that honestly, more often than not, benefits the seller way more than the buyer. I mean, think about it. If everyone actually achieved that effortless success they promise, who would these gurus even sell to?
Whoa, that's a really good point. It's like a pyramid scheme of productivity or something. But instead of money, we're spending our time and energy, often on things that don't even really matter that much in the grand scheme of things. And that kind of leads us to another huge point the video makes. This dangerous idea that being busy automatically means you're being productive. They use the example of an overflowing to-do list, which, come on, I think we've all been there. It's so easy to get sucked into, like just checking things off this never-ending to-do list, you know? Even if they're not actually that important in the grand scheme of things. Like, I know I've definitely had those days where I feel super busy, but then I go to bed and I'm like, wait, what did I actually accomplish today?
Oh, tell me about it. It's like this illusion of progress we get. And it's a really easy trap to fall into, for sure. Our brains, they get this little hit of dopamine every time we check something off a list. It doesn't even matter if it was actually a meaningful task or just busy work. And then on top of that, you've got this pressure to be seen as productive. Yeah. Like you're always going to be on the go, always achieving something. It's like this constant race against, well, often against nothing, really.
Yeah.
And it is exhausting.
Yeah. Exhausting is a good word for it. And speaking of exhausting, you know, the video doesn't sugarcoat it either. It talks about the dark side of this whole always on pressure, the stress, the burnout, the relationships that start to suffer. And honestly, I think a lot of us have probably experienced that firsthand. I know I've definitely had moments where like I'm just fried from work and I end up snapping at my family or something.
Yeah. And those are just the like immediate consequences. Yeah. The video actually cites a study that found 75%, a full 75% of adults say they feel stressed because of work. I mean, that's a huge number of people. But it's the long-term stuff that's really worrying. Chronic stress, it can lead to all sorts of problems like higher risk of heart disease, anxiety, depression, you name it. And then on a bigger scale, think about it. You've got all this lost productivity, strain on the healthcare system, a decline in everyone's well-being. It's kind of scary when you think about it.
It really is. It's like this vicious cycle. We push ourselves to the limit, we burn out, and then ironically, we end up being less productive in the long run. So if this whole hustle harder thing is so unsustainable, what's the alternative? The video seems to be pointing towards balance as the key to escaping the hustle trap. But like, easier said than done, right?
Yeah. I mean, in a world that's obsessed with doing more, man, what does balance even really look like? You know, the video seems to be suggesting a different way of thinking about it all. But I'd love to hear your take. What does balance actually mean in this context?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? And I do like that the video doesn't pretend there's like one magic solution that works for everyone. Finding that true balance, it's not as simple as just like working less. It's about working smarter, for sure. But also, and this is key, it's about making sure that your effort is aligned with what truly matters to you.
Yeah, totally. Because like everyone's definition of success is different, right? What brings balance for one person might be totally off for someone else.
Exactly. For some people, balance might look like setting some really clear boundaries between their work life and their personal life. Like maybe they designate specific times to disconnect from technology so they can actually recharge, And then for others, it might be about finding a career path that actually aligns with their values. So work doesn't feel like such a chore. It's more like a meaningful contribution. It's different for everyone, and it takes some trial and error. A lot of self-reflection, too, to figure out what really works best for you.
And speaking of figuring out what works, the video mentions a few. Classic productivity tips to help fight against that hustle mentality. Things like the Eisenhower matrix for prioritizing, the Pomodoro technique for those focused work sprints, even mindfulness to help with burnout. I've tried all of those at some point with, varying degrees of success. Do any of those stand out to you as particularly helpful for, breaking free from the hustle trap?
They're all really good tools. But if I had to pick just one, I'd have to say that mastering the Eisenhower matrix can be a game changer. It's not just about creating another to-do list. It's different. It's more about having a framework for how you make decisions about your time and energy. Like, imagine you're categorizing all your tasks.
Yeah.
Based on how urgent they are and how important they are. So you've got urgent and important, important but not urgent, urgent but not important, and then, of course, neither urgent nor important. It's like when you sort your clothes before you do laundry. You wouldn't just throw everything in together, right?
Yeah.
You've got your delicates, your whites, your colors.
Okay, that's actually a really good analogy. I get it. Now you're applying that same logic to your tasks.
Exactly. Yeah. The Eisenhower matrix, it helps you do the same thing with all the stuff you have to do. It lets you strategically focus on the stuff that's actually going to move the needle, the things that have the biggest impact on your goals. That's what real productivity is all about.
It's about taking back control, right? Being intentional with our time and energy, instead of letting that hustle mentality run the show. Which brings us right back to that main message of the video we've been talking about. We all have a choice in how we define success for ourselves. It's not about winning some imaginary hustle Olympics, It's about designing a life that actually fits our values, our priorities, all of that.
100%. And that version of success might look really different from that picture perfect, always on image we see so much of these days. It takes self-awareness. It takes being honest with ourselves about our priorities. And, it takes courage to say no to the things that aren't serving us. It makes you think, though, what if as a society we stopped putting so much emphasis on just appearing busy all the time? What if we embraced a more balanced way of approaching work and life? What kind of possibilities would open up then? For achievement, for well-being, for everything. Something to think about, right?
Definitely something to think about. And on that note, we'd love to hear from you, our listeners, that is. How do you define success on your own terms? What strategies have worked for you when it comes to escaping that hustle trap, finding more balance, all of that good stuff? Let's keep this conversation going. Drop us a comment on our socials. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Who knows, maybe your insights will spark our next deep dive. But until then, thanks for diving deep with us.